All right, so we discussed that, we just finished saying that, these two parts need to be analyzed separately. So it looks like when we get to youth orchestra number 15, that's where the divide occurs. So I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to keep this one. You don't want to really get rid of research that you've done already. And when I get to 15, I'm going to just graph that information. So for time purposes, I'm not going to put headers and footers in here. Um, so if we take a look, there's a very good relationship there. So I'm going to grab a linear trend line and show the R value, and 0.86, remember that's R squared. So I'm going to use that information. I'm going to keep that. And we're going to move this around a little bit just so it's out of the way. So if I go back to my data, I'm going to say that I cut it at the 14 right here. So for 91 to 1996, there is a strong linear relationship, or linear correlation, I should say. And I'll just say that R is equal to an R value of 0.93, which is pretty strong. So there's definitely a linear relationship prior. And then let's take a look at the after. So for 1997 to 2000, let's take a look at that data. So now I'm just going to do the bottom one. And again, there's only 4 points. You can talk about how statistically relevant it is, but I mean, you work with what you got, right? And here we go. So that's the resulting graph. If I do a quick analysis here, that looks pretty darn strong. Put the R squared in. I don't have a legend, is my problem. So I need the vertical professionals. And the legend to the right. And it still doesn't want to show it. And the problem is I didn't put a header with it, so I'm just going to quickly put everything down here that I want. Rather than trying to figure out how to improve it, to add it in, I'm just going to do this, because this will fix all our woes. If in doubt, copy, paste, and use the data you want. So there we go. Now I got my much needed legend. Again, linear, pretty good. 0.95 is the R squared value. So there is a strong linear correlation. And that would be R, oops, let's extend the page. Oops, R equals, and I said it was about 0.97. So we get about 0.98 correlation after. Okay. And I'm just going to comment when splitting the data, it creates relatively small sample sizes. And you just want to note that because, that is a factor. If you're bringing this to someone and saying, there seems to be two trends in the data, and that's valid. There is two trends in the data. Just be aware, when I did my analysis, both data pools, I've split the data pools in half. All right. So you can draw conclusions with the analysis. Oops. So just to finish that off then, what conclusions can we draw from this? Well, something happened here at this year here when we hit that 15, and I think it was 97 we said. Okay, so conclusion, something happened because the data split. All right, so some event occurred in 1997. Can't spell, not really anything new by my standards. 7, because the data because, oops, the data split. All right. Um, to draw any conclusions, you would need to decide if you want pre or post 1997 data. So what are we basing this on? So because we're talking about the future, probably want post 1997 data, but again, it's a small data set. So B part. Suppose you later discover that one of the country's professional orchestras went bankrupt. How does this information affect your analysis? Okay. A professional orchestra, we'll call it disappearing, reduces the demand for players. Less positions are available, thus causing a split in the data. All right. In the data. So that means that I would feel comfortable following the trend analysis for the post 1997 set. Okay, so you know an orchestra went bankrupt. Well, that's what caused that, that big split in the data. All right, because what happened was when you have one fold, the number of professionals that exist out there goes from 32 down to mid-teens, because there just isn't the demand out there for those professionals. So now that I know that that's the reason, this trend line will continue, barring another orchestra closing. So I'll just put the trend should continue until continue, given that no further orchestras go bankrupt. And that's basically what you're going to tell the people that have asked you, to analyze the data. Is it worth their money? Well, for sure, the more youth orchestra, it increases the number of professionals, but it's only as good as, those orchestras continuing. So there you go. The homework and anything I do, in assessment situations, I'm going to try to make something like this fairly apparent. I'm not going to try to make it challenging. Where the challenge is going to be for you is when you do your ISU and you get data that may provide this kind of result. And that's where those critical thinking skills come in. And remember, it's you justifying it. If you don't feel there's a split in the data, then you just say you feel that there is no correlation and then explain the why. That's what I'm really looking for, because you need to defend your position. You don't want to just look at it and say, oh, no correlation's less work, because you're going to get challenged on that, whether it's from myself in this course or in future courses or jobs. So it's important that you do take the time and make that critical analysis. So there are 3 examples, very simple examples in terms of the big picture, but it gives you an opportunity to move forward. So anyway, good luck, and if you have any questions with this or the project, let me know and I'll give you a hand.